I wouldn't normally reference Metacritic or any other more established or trusted review sites simply because the concept of scoring media can be heavily scrutinised based on preferences and nostalgia and all that junk. And yes, I'm well aware of the irony in saying this, but when it comes to the highest ranking games of all time, just knowing that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 has remained in the top 10 for 2 decades is goddamn impressive. So lately, I've been noticing a lot of video traffic towards my old review of Pro Skater 3 and 4, which is really very strange. I've no idea why that could be. Listen, my original coverage of these games does not do them justice, hence why I've decided to revisit them all again in anticipation for the upcoming remaster. But in doing so, I've come to realise that perhaps for a large majority of my life, that I was wrong about this game. The first time I played 2000's 3 as a kid was after having already experienced Underground 1 and 2, which are dope-ass games, easily the peak of the franchise, and I think many will agree. So going back to slug it out with an older game, I just never favoured it much as a kid, though I was still able to appreciate its importance, of course. I mean, my god, without this leap onto the next-gen hardware in 2001, the series may have flatlined much sooner. With not only an all-new physics engine, but also a bunch of very important additions to the moveset, it's no shock why the game is still considered in such high regard to this day. And I barely said a damn thing about it! So yeah, I was wrong about this game. I did it dirty. Because this might be the most profound playthrough of this game that I've ever had. Now, like with Pro Skater 2, I was honestly never a fan of replaying through the game multiple times with every character, so that's something that I want to do again here. And it's going to be great to really test out the diversity in movesets, as well as get to play series newcomer Bam Margera. I know, we'll talk about it next time. He replaces Bob Burnquist, who was licensed to X Games Skateboarding from the same year, which I've reviewed in the past. It was decent for what it was, don't get me wrong, but still missed the mark in a few areas. I'd recommend peeping that video if you want to learn more. But anyway, playing as the different pros properly for the first time also means that I can kind of skim over this game's Create a Skater mode. Look, it's fine and a nice update from 2, there's no denying that, but I've still always struggled to make anyone look half decent with it. However, having said that, this is the first and sadly one of the only times that we'd have access to editable pros if you want to change up someone's outfit, which is definitely a neat addition. You can give characters more accurate attires or just get silly with it. So forget all of that, once you've assigned all your special moves to the only button combos that are easy to remember, it's time to drop into the Foundry, and man, what a fucking introduction. I mean, this game needs no introduction, but if there was ever the perfect way to kick things off, then this level, clanging machinery, dunking foremen, and crashing out of the rooftop line to the sound of CKY is definitely the way to do it. God damn, dude. Pro Skater 3's levels have featured in so many re-releases over the years. Levels like Canada, Los Angeles, and the airport are all iconic and diverse maps, but you have no idea how stoked I am to see the Foundry, Skater Island, and Tokyo remastered. And I mean, holy shit, 2000's 3 has some of the best levels out of the entire franchise, and that's definitive. If you've seen my every Tony Hawk level ranked marathon, then you'll know that out of 165 courses, you'll only need to refer to the top 20 spots on that list to get the full picture. Look, even some of the lesser known stages like Downhill from the PS1 version and the oil rig which debuted on the Xbox before returning in American Wasteland, even the PS1 downgrade of Canada actually has more going on than the main version that we all know and love. I mean, there is just so much greatness that come out of this game. And while I doubt that we'll see any of that extended Pro Skater 3 stuff make the cut for this new remake, there's still no denying just what makes these courses so memorable. Character. Every map features pedestrians populating the environment, which allow developers to get creatively silly with hidden Easter eggs and new challenges for each map, impressing skaters with slick moves, causing havoc on the streets, and nailing that top to bottom combo line through the airport to deliver your buddy's tickets still feels so natural all these years later. And that's mostly thanks to it fleshing out that authenticity, which I know I keep carrying on about, but this game delivers another evolution on this formula. From even the first game, it was obvious that some characters are best suited to different scenarios. You know, Birdman's gotta fly, while Rodney is at his best putting together insane street lines. Well, with the new addition of being able to revert when landing in a quarter pipe, allowing you to string more tricks together, maintaining that combo in such an effortless way unites these two very different approaches into a singular, free being as the ultimate transformation of this sport into the video game setting. I mean, it just takes the game beyond what we thought was ever really possible with the previous two, right? And Neversoft being so conscious of this and designing levels around this concept of perpetual motion is what makes every game after this feel like such an accomplishment to master. You can see it so clearly if you play Classic Mode in Thug 2 for example, or even the original maps that are unlockable in this game. This toolset is worthless if you're not provided with the appropriate environment to take advantage of it. Now that's not to say that you need to be god tier anti-THPS levels of cooked to get the most out of this game, okay? In fact, far from it. I'd argue that Pro Skater 3 is where a new player should begin their journey with the franchise. It's got the refined fundamentals and just the right amount of innovative additions and concepts without going overboard, a detail many of the later games would inevitably fall into the trap of. And when it comes to the more advanced stuff, well, this was also the first game to feature a tutorial mode voiced by the man himself, where if you complete each challenge successfully, we get the lovely sound of barnyard animals being slaughtered. But look, I know you guys already know all of this. In fact, you're probably better at this shit than I am. But something that I was aware of with the game but never actually thought too much about is the additional diversity in objectives depending on the character you choose to play. Not only do those stat points actually feel like they really play a much greater role in creating diversity within the roster, but depending on a skater's skill set leaning towards vert or street levels can, in a few examples, lead to objectives being altered on different maps. It's such a minor detail for sure, so much so that you might not even pick up on it because every level has us pick up the skate letters and the secret tape, do the special trick for a photo, but there are a few instances I've noticed where objects appear in different locations, or the required tricks vary between skaters. And I think that is just so fucking cool. Like I said, I was aware of this, but I never really grasped why that mattered until now. For such a simple game with linear progression that demands you replay it again and again, any slight change to the formula can do wonders to shake things up. And for the first time in my life, I actually enjoyed blitzing through the stages with every skater to test my skills by learning to approach courses with a fresh perspective every time. And there's not a whole lot of games I could name that are capable of that to such specifics. There is no economy this time around, which is odd as this idea would return for Pro Skater 4, meaning that additional stat points are scattered throughout each map along with a hidden deck to find that are unique to each character. And even once you start unlocking some of the more secret and absurd skaters, each one continues to offer a different gameplay experience with more wacky, special moves. And man, I've got to say, this roster is stacked. I doubt we'll be seeing many of these guys return in the remake, especially when it comes to the licensed Marvel stuff, but for me, I'm just excited to have some of these great levels back. Like I said, the reason this game has remained so popular and highly rated is the perfect marriage of ideas and mechanics. Simple to pick up, hard to master. Authentic to skateboarding culture, but true to the purest forms of video gaming. It was a tribute for the diehards and an entry point for kids like me, unaware at the time that the entire landscape of their minds was about to be transformed for the rest of their lives. But at its core, it's just fucking top notch, dude. Like, I have zero complaints. Maybe if it had just a few extra levels to extend the career mode so that I could play it for longer, or maybe had they played into the variation on objectives a little bit more, perhaps. Something like alternative methods of accessing level secrets based on a skater's style. I don't know. I feel like at this point, anything that I could suggest would be purely irrelevant speculation. So, look, here's what we're gonna do, okay? We've had a 6, and we've had a 7. Now, my original score for this game was also a 7. But I think that I was wrong. In fact, no, look, I know that I was wrong about this one. Seeing just how refined each run of this game can be across the different roster, and truly appreciating and understanding what it did for level design moving forward in the franchise, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 gets 8 out of 10. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. A 97 might be pushing it, but hey man, I only drop 8s for the best of the best, and the only other 8 that I've ever given to a Tony Hawk game was for Underground. They're two very different games cut from the same cloth, but hey, I think number 3 gotta get that extra bit of credit for hitting that stride so early. Now, when it comes to the other versions of this game, more precisely the 5th generation version, despite remaining on the original Apocalypse engine, still did a really good job at maintaining that fun flow through the different levels. Though obviously a weaker experience overall, it is still a noteworthy one, and I talked about it a while back, so definitely check out this video if you want to learn more. Additionally, it was also released on both the Game Boy Advanced and Game Boy Color, which really took me by surprise with how decently they captured the feeling or created their own unique one. So you can see all of my skateboarding game coverage in this playlist up here. But anyway, as always, I want to thank you all for joining me. I've still got one more video coming up for you, and listen, after this, I cannot wait to replay Pro Skater 4. But in the meantime, remember to share the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, I'm Square Eye Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.